All right, so now we're going to set up the character to work with the weapons and this guy here. So I'm just going to organize this stuff a little bit. I'm going to create a new folder called held objects. I'm going to create two subfolders, one called guns, the other called items, and then rifle. Well, I guess that would be called M4A1. You could say rifles and then M4A1, you know, however you want to do it, but I'll probably just do it like this for now. I'm not too worried about that. So I'm going to go over here into the DAO characters folder. And it probably would have been a little bit easier if I would have put this stuff over there to begin with. But I'm going to, because this UE4 Manny guy is already set up with his own anim sets that I made for him, I'm just going to go ahead and copy all this over actually. So I'm just going to copy that whole entire thing, and I'll just go ahead and delete that. So the thing is it did create all this for us, but we're going to have to rename them, and we're going to have to reassign these references because these are referencing each other. But in actuality, when we copy them, they're still referencing the ones in the other folder. So first thing I'm going to do is go into the main held objects folder and search for UE4. And I'm going to select all of these and right click and batch rename. And I'm going to replace UE4 with Steve. You could even say CC4 Steve _ Steve, you know, in this case, but because I would probably have multiple different character creator characters. The thing about character creator is your characters can have drastically like varying anatomies. So it's important that you try to not like have every character with a different anatomy, because if so, this is going to be a lot more work for you. So yeah, let's just go ahead and go into the M9 folder. I'm going to open up this one. And this asset, it stores the montages, and the montages are chosen out of this map via gameplay tag. And so these montages are looked up by gameplay tag from a map. The linked anim layer class right here, this dictates the logic that is driving this anim set. So one thing to know is that your anim sets, this is an anim set, ALS, when it stands for linked anim set. These pose sets right here, they have to, so if you come back over here and you go into the linked anim layer, go into my blueprint, and under DAO pose setup primary, and if you just look at these and you go into these, you'll see that they're looking for a pose with a specific gameplay tag. So all of those poses, all of those gameplay tags must have a pose associated with them. If you modify this, if you duplicate and modify this linked anim layer class, then you can replace this linked anim layer class. Sorry, my camera outside is going off. Mute my phone. So you would assign that linked anim layer class right here, and then you would have to create a linked anim set for it, and you'd have to make sure that every gameplay tag that you used in there has a pose associated with it in this map, so that it can find and load a pose. And then for each of those poses, you also need overlay layering settings. So in actuality, you're only going to need so many of these. Like I could probably eventually set this system up so that you can select from presets, and you wouldn't actually have to set these settings yourself. But in actuality, depending on the circumstances, you're probably going to want to. It'd be hard for me to cover every circumstance with a preset for you, but it is possible. So I'm just going to leave it like that for now. But yeah, so every state inside of here that requires a pose, you must have a pose associated with that gameplay tag that's associated with that, and you must also have an overlay layering setting associated with it as well. So you have these for standing, and you have them for crouching. So for the most part, as long as you're not creating your own anim sets, you don't actually have to do this. You can use pre-made ones that are already in here. But if you want to set up your own, you can replace these poses in here and just the poses, and you won't have to touch these overlay layering settings. So you would only need to touch those overlay layering settings if you needed to drastically change the way things worked, in which case you would probably be making your own linked anim layer. And then you would need to set this stuff up for it. In actuality, just to let you know, the flashlight is actually using the pistol linked anim layer, believe it or not. So that just goes to show you that you can repurpose these for different things. All right, so moving on. Outside of the anim sets for each hand that the item can be held in, we need to actually specify if it requires a free hand, because just because we have a right hand and a left hand down here, it doesn't mean that you want this item to be held alongside another item. So for example, if this was a bow, but you wanted the bow to be able to be held in both the right hand and the left hand, but you didn't want something to be held in the other hand, then you would need to check requires free hand. For a pistol, you don't need a free hand, really. There is actually a setup in here that does require a free hand, but it doesn't seem to really affect the layering that much in this situation, so I'm not requiring a free hand for it. So for dual welding, I'm actually using either hand for the dual welding anim set, and that's an anim set specifically with poses where he's actually holding two items. So this actually does look funny on him on the UEFN, and that's because I retargeted this pose from the UEFN to the UE4. I fixed it and then I retargeted it back. So the deformations that the UEFN's original pose was causing on the UE4, that's now being applied to the UEFN. So you won't be able to use these poses for the UEFN, but you can use them for the UE4 and they'll look fine. In this case, we're actually using this for Steve, the UE4 ones. So if I actually go over here, you'll see that these are all in the UE4 folder. This is part of his anim set. And that was so I could fix the way that he looked when he was holding them and the way his fingers were bent. So the IK retarget data, I decided to make these specific for each hand because in some situations, you actually do need different IK retargeting data for the different hands. You might be able to get away with one in some situations, but there are situations where you're going to want these to have their own. So these settings here, I've gone over this stuff before. The held object offset, I don't call it HOD anymore. It's called HOO. So I renamed all those assets to HOO instead of HOD. And I added one for the left hand. So now you have one for the left and the right hand. You don't need these per set. So these actually only, I've kept these in the right hand folder, these right here. But you'll see that these other ones, they just have the aiming and the ready. Okay, so we need to make these assets for this character. Actually, that's what we're doing now. So I'm just going to close all those tabs right there. And I'm going to go back to the M9 folder for the character. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this because it'll make it easier. So over here, I'm just going to drag that one. And this is why I renamed it to Steve. That now I can tell which ones are which. We're going to keep the enum sets for the UE4, but we're going to use, Steve is going to have his own IK retargeter offset settings. So that he can hold and aim the gun properly. That's because anatomy differs from character to character, and because of that, they all need different offsets. I go over that in depth in the documentation if you want to go and read it. So for this one, same thing. You'll see this one only has a right-hand enum set. Also, I made these so that the montages are actually stored here instead of on the guns. The reason why I did that is because you might want each character to have their own like firing or reloading montages, or you might want just one out of 5 characters to have their own personal one. Maybe you have a special character and you want him to have different reloads, so this allows you to do that. That's why I structured these the way I did. I structured these with expansion in mind. I wanted this to be as flexible as possible, so I wouldn't have to go back and refactor things again. I know I keep saying I'm not going to refactor things, guys, and then I end up refactoring it. I'm just going to tell you now, if I find a better way to handle something, I'm gonna do that. I'm not just going to leave things all screwed up. You'll see the flashlight can be held with anything in the M9, but the rifle, the M4A1, it cannot. Okay, and if you notice too, the flashlight can only be held in the left hand, but it does not require a free hand. That's the reason why I needed that right there. I needed this so that it would be really flexible. And if you hover, if you ever have any question about something, you can hover over it. Some of these actually have information in their description. So when you hover over it, it'll show up as a tooltip. So that's basically the setup on that. Now we need to just zero these in. I know I'm rambling a lot, guys, but I'm trying to cover everything. So if I come over here, you'll see I still can't pick it up. And yeah, I forgot to do that part. So we need to browse to this asset and we need to open up this char data M9. And I'm just going to do that for the flashlight as well. And I'm going to do that for the M4A1. So now what we need to do is, let's see, I want to close these two. So templates, I put this under the templates folder. So I'm going to go under the template section right here. And I could do a nested chooser for CC4 chars if I wanted. I guess I could do that. Actually, no, I can't, because this needs to be set up differently. So if you look over here, you'll see this needs to match exact, and it needs input and row value. But over here on this one, it doesn't need to match exact, and it's row value and input. So that allows us to match partial tags right here in this folder, but inside of this folder, you have to match the tags exactly. So you would have to create your own like subfolder structure inside of here if you were going to do that. So I'm just going to switch this over to asset, and I'm going to give this the, hopefully this subfolder CC4 doesn't cause any problems. I don't think it will though. It shouldn't. And then on this one, I should be able to copy that. Okay, copied the entire thing. Okay, that's fine though. So if we go back into our character folder up here and go to the M9, this is the asset the M9 is looking for. And you can actually click and drag that over here, and it'll accept it as long as it's the right type. It has to be a PDA item char data asset. And just to show you, if I try to do it with this one, it won't take it. See, it's red. It has to be a PDA live char data, item char data asset. So if you go to the settings, you'll see it needs to output a PDA item char data type. And the parameters is a structure that holds a gameplay tag container. I had to do it that way. The first time I tried to do this, I couldn't figure out how to compare gameplay tags inside of here because they needed to be containers. So I tried to set this up to be a gameplay tag container, and it didn't work. And then I realized you can't do it like that. It has to be inside of a struct. That's why this says struct right here. It's looking for a struct. So any data that you pass into here has to be passed in from a struct, which is a structure data type. So also you can go through and you can see all your subfolders inside of here, your nested choosers. So now we should be able to at least pick it up. He won't hold it right, but we should at least be able to pick them up. See? So it looks like he's about to, it looks like he's about to shoot himself. Or like he's trying to. So we're going to come back over here, and we're going to open up this guy right here. Also, you can go over here and you can switch this over, but there's a bug right here where it doesn't actually update immediately. You'll see nothing showing up. But if I holster this and I pull it back out, it may actually show up. It still doesn't. No. Let me try it again. Okay. Well, anyway, you can find them from here. That's some weird bug. I don't know what's wrong with that. It seems like these kind don't really work all that well. Maybe because they're only firing once. That's probably why. I only have these firing once inside of there. So he's holding it in the right hand, so we need to open up the IK retarget data for the right hand. I actually have this wrong. You'll see this says dual hand. This should say right, so I assigned to the wrong one here. If we browse to it, you'll see I sure did. So I need to replace that with, yep, and I assigned to the right hand to the, so I need to assign the dual hand. That's also why I named these right, left, dual hand. You know, the way that you name these is very important, or else you'll end up putting them in the wrong slot. And then you'll get confused. Why is it not working? That's why. So I'm going to have to stop this and start it again because they were in the wrong folder and it caches them. So anyway, now I can open up this and I can open up the hand R and I can expand to this. And I'm just going to zero this out. And I might like do some magic later on, guys, to where the location and rotation is relative to world space instead of bone space. But right now it's relative to bone space, so it can be a little confusing trying to move this stuff around. Rotation isn't really confusing in local space, but location is. So also this tends to get gimbal lock. That's why it's spinning a lot. And these other ones are changing. I'm not sure how to address that. But yeah, that's called gimbal lock. You can look it up if you're interested in knowing more. But I'm just going to say 90 there. And I think that's probably about good. I just want to make sure that, well, we can adjust it more after we get it in place. Let's go ahead and do that first. So I'm going to move it forward and move it to the side and then move it up. And you can scale it down too, guys. So if you need it to be smaller, you can say 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. You see? So if the character has really small hands, you might actually need to just make it smaller. So it does look like it's a little lopsided in his hand. Let's see. No, I think the hand is just tilted to the side. It's hard to tell, actually. I'm going to move it more to this side, though, where the fingers are up against it. It looks like the pinky is inside of it now. Yeah, so I'm going to tilt it. I'm going to try a -5. Let's try a -8. I think that's good. I think that's good. So I'm not going to go all nuts with it here. Yeah. Okay. That's it for that. We'll have to do the other one too. So what I'll do is I'll just probably just copy this one over to the other hand. So I'll open up the left hand and I'll just paste that one into there. And then we'll adjust it, we'll invert it and stuff like that. It's not going to be right because, I mean, the offset's going to be different in the other hand because of the differences. But anyway, I might add a button later inside of there to where you can just like press a button and it inverts these values for you, and then you can adjust them from there. That may help you adjust it for the left hand or for the opposite hand after you get it adjusted in one. But yeah, so anyway, we're going to go ahead and go into the aiming, and we're going to go ahead and expand the IK sections of these, and then we're going to go into the content drawer. And we're going to go into DAO blueprints, and there should be a widget folder there. Right click on this editor utility and run editor utility widget. For me, it's going to dock it because I've already docked mine before, so it remembers that. And these are for the static rotation offsets that you see here. And so what I'll do is I'll just fire it once and I'll copy this. Actually, I make sure these are zeroed out before you do this. You'll see that value is different now. And there you go. That's all there is to it. Now what we can do is we can adjust this other hand's positioning. You'll see there's a problem here. I'll show you guys later how to fix those problems around the wrist by creating a pose driver. But I'm not going to do that right now because it's pretty involved. Also, you'll see his fingers actually look funny. I don't like the way that his fingers look with this Unreal Engine 4 Anim Set. You know what? Let's try to switch this guy over to the MetaHuman Anim Set. It might actually be better. Might actually look better. So I'll go ahead and show you guys how to do that. So if we go into the M9, you'll see that we have these PDA linked Anim Set, and these are all for the UE4. But if I go over to a MetaHuman, you'll see that the male has his own. And I'm going to drag these into here. And we'll just see what it looks like with that. Now we're going to have to re-zero it because those are different poses and anatomy and all of that. It looks like his fingers bent backwards. This guy might actually end up needing his own anim sets. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't look much better. He's going to end up needing his own anim sets. I'm just going to undo that. And we're just going to stick with this UE4 anim set. I'll show you guys later how to do that. It almost looks fine. It's just like right here looks weird. I might go back and modify those UE4 poses. It might just need, the pose itself just might need to be modified. So anyway, we've got that set up for the right hand aiming. We don't need to adjust the ready pose because it's not hand positioning sensitive. So we just need to adjust that one. Now this actually goes a lot faster than it is for us right now, and that's just because I'm trying to explain how things work to you guys. Yeah, so his hand kind of looks a little weird when he's, let's see, and that's just because the pose just doesn't quite match nicely with him. And so it's doing some funny things to his fingers. Yeah, this is why you really need to make your poses for your character specific type. For example, with the metahumans, I only had to make one set for all the metahuman males and one set for all the metahuman females. For the CC characters, you're probably only going to need to make one set for all of them. So that should work because they all use the same skeleton. They try to universalize all that. And so the base pose that they have when they get exported for Unreal, it's just a little different than the Unreal Engine 4 characters. And that's the reason why the Unreal Engine 4 characters poses just look a little odd on it. They almost look good, but there's just some slight oddities. Anyway, so I'm going to unpause this for one, and then I'm going to press H to holster that pistol. And I'm going to come over here and pick up this other pistol. And if I have a pistol holstered and I pick up another one, it'll automatically pick the other one up in the opposite hand because there's a spot available right here for it to be placed in. And there's none available over here. So anyway, you can see that didn't work. I told you it probably wouldn't, but what we can do is we can say plus 180. That didn't work. Let's try 180. There we go. That gets us close, but we may still need to adjust its angle. In fact, this angle right here is probably going to need to be adjusted, because that negative is local to the other hand, and this hand is mirrored remember? So actually that actually looks about right. Yeah, I'm going to say that looks right. So that doesn't need to be adjusted. For the metahumans, I had to adjust that offset right there, the rotational offset this way, that one way. But anyway, for this guy, it doesn't seem to matter. So I'm just going to open up this. We're going to do the same thing. And this time we're copying the left. Oops, I forgot to zero this out. Always zero that out because this doesn't take this into consideration. In fact, if you read this right here, I have a warning up here just to remind you. And now you'll see it came out over as 000. That's pretty close to perfect. You might think it is perfect, but that's only accurate to 3 degrees of freedom. You'll see, you can't even see where the green, you can barely see like a few green pixels because they're so close together. Yeah, so that looks good. So now we just need to do the dual welding. So yeah, the left one doesn't have a two-handed pose. I took the two-handed pose off from the left one. That's why I didn't have to correct the opposite hand for holding, the supporting hand. So anyway, we can fire the gun, open this up. We're gonna have to zero it out because we copied these, remember? And these were zeroed for the other guy. So fire it once, copy, paste. And I'm shift left clicking to paste that, by the way. And there you go. Perfect. So there's that. So now we just need to do it for the M4A1. I should have gave him the female Anim set. The UE5 characters, they're using the metahuman ones, actually. Give me 1 second. Let me turn the light on. It's getting dark. So we'll just browse on over to this one and open it up. And open up this right here. I'm just going to zero that out. Add a 90-degree rotation there. And that looks pretty close. We'll see. Let me get it properly positioned in his hand, and then we'll make any further adjustments that we need. Yeah, this one I think is going to need to be rotated. I think we did something like -7. Yeah. And that seems about right. Looks like we can probably go down some. If I move it any closer, I'm afraid it would put his finger too close to where a trigger would be on an actual gun. But you can always adjust that after you replace this rifle with your own. So let's just go ahead and zero this. This is zeroed already. So all right. Now we can, and you'll see he starts leaning forward whenever I move that forward. That's why I was telling you guys you probably aren't going to want the full body IK on the arms because it can, you see that? You see this? That's why I was telling you guys you're probably not going to want that. It can cause some issues. It'll cause them to lean. Look, as I move this over, you see how he starts leaning? That's why I don't use the full body IK for the arms. Yeah. Just personal preference. All right. So that's good. Now we can go into the resting pose. You'll see his hand is messed up on this one. So for this one, we will, well, I call it the ready pose. But yeah, for this one, we actually will need to adjust this hand. Now the full body IK can kind of help in situations like this. It can help kind of prevent issues around the wrist, but I don't think it's worth the other problems it causes. And you'll see this thumb is all screwed up. It just doesn't, that pose looked good on the UE4 guy, but it just doesn't look good for his thumbs. It makes his thumbs look funny. But yeah, I'll show you guys how to set up custom poses. Actually, I'll probably go ahead and show that along with this series. I'll probably come back and do another video alongside these other videos I'm doing in here today. I'll probably go ahead and show you guys how to fix that for maybe the rifle, actually, because there's only 3 poses for the rifle, so it'll be easy for me to show you how to do it for them. So I'll do that actually. All right, but yeah, anyway, you'll see that, now he's holding the rifle properly. And if we holster that, it puts it on his back. And we can come over here and we can pick up the... Okay. Oh, okay, that's, yeah, so that's because we don't have anything set up for the... Let me check. I'll have to look into that. That might actually be a, I mean, it's probably due to something not being set up properly. Oh, I said, okay. Yeah, so I set the M4A1. Okay. Yeah, so that was my fault, guys. It wasn't a bug. It was just me not paying attention. So it was loading the M4A1 Anim set for the flashlight. And it was treating it as a two-handed right-handed weapon. So now you'll see that it's loading it properly. And we can go ahead and just position this. We only really need to position this in the hand. You're probably not going to care that much about the accuracy of this if it's aiming straight forward, but that's up to you. If you want to make it aim straight forward, then what you'll probably do is you'll probably add an actual light source to it and put him in a dark room and then adjust the way he's aiming it. So when he's in the aim state and when he's in the ready state. So you'll see that on this one we only have 2 states. Yeah, so that's actually pretty close. I'm just going to kind of move it somewhat into position here. And yeah, the fingers are looking pretty bad for this guy here. So I need to actually rotate this upwards. Yeah, I think that's actually pretty close to accurate. And I'm going to move it back and up a little. And yeah, these directions are confusing. That's why I was saying I'll probably set this up so that it automatically converts it. It'll convert it from world space, or it'll rotate it in world or offset it in world space. I don't know. I'll figure something out eventually on that front. But yeah, because it's kind of confusing. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it like that. Like I said, if you want it to look any better than that, you're going to have to modify it. You're going to have to create your own Anim Set, linked Anim Set. And I'll show you how to do that in, I guess, the next video. So, well, I'm going to be bringing in a custom weapon, so I'll probably just show y'all how to do it for that. We'll see. Yeah. All right, so that's the, let's see what it looks like when he's aiming. Okay, it's actually aiming pretty high. It's actually aiming a little high, actually, for instead of level, it's actually aiming upwards a little bit. So we could actually rotate this. Let's see. That's, I don't actually have the, I'm just going to aim it a little down. I think that's probably okay. It would probably be shining somewhere around right here. It probably doesn't need to be aiming straight forward. It probably needs to be aiming slightly down. Yeah. I have all mine aiming like perfectly straight, but that's probably not actually how you want it in the actual game. I didn't actually add a light source to mine, so it was difficult for me to tell. I just treated it like I was aiming a rifle. Anyway, that's basically how you do that. So you learned how to set up all these with the chooser, and you saw a few minor mistakes on my part. Oh look, this one finally decided to start working. Nice. Now that I don't need to see it. There's a way to trigger that to get around that bug where it doesn't update. I don't remember how though, but anyway. And yeah, the left hand actually recoils when you shoot, and that's just because that recoil animation was meant for a two-handed pistol. That's the reason why it looks like that. I'll fix that later. I've already got it set up so that we can have like hand-specific recoil montages. The weapons are actually updated on what hand they're being held in, so that allows you to select specific montages from the weapon logic based off of the hand they're being held in. But yeah, I hope you guys found this useful.